Now, speaking of McCarthy, there's been a lot of infighting among Republicans over the last couple of weeks, discussing who should be the next Speaker of the House now that the GOP has taken control in the midterms. Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who comes on this show a lot, issued a lengthy statement yesterday criticizing anyone who opposes the House GOP leader, saying that they were lying to the base about having plans to pick a different speaker. Greene and Trump and others, vocal supporters of McCarthy's bid for speaker. Others, though, in the caucus are saying no, they'd like to see Andy Biggs. And I get it. We all want change, and we want America and Americans to be put first. So, Marjorie put this out. It's time for the friends in the Never Kevin caucus to stop lying to the base just because they don't like Kevin McCarthy. They do not have a plan, and there is no consensus candidate. Sabotaging the country for personal reasons is not brave or righteous. It's selfish and foolish. Now, Republicans did, by about, I think, 85 or 86%, overwhelmingly nominate McCarthy to be the next speaker in November. But there's been a handful that have said no. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz has indicated publicly and very vocally that he plans to vote against McCarthy, which again would derail getting a speaker in right off the bat at the beginning of the new year. Is that good or bad for us? I don't care about the party. I don't care about those a-holes in Washington. I care about you and me, our tax dollars, our families, our livelihood. That's all I care about. Earlier this week, Matt Gaetz said he supports bringing Republican House business to a halt all the way up until March of next year if it means they can get someone else besides Kevin as Speaker. Gaetz, one of the five who opposes McCarthy, told Charlie Kirk in an interview earlier this week that he said, well, there's been sort of a turbulent takeoff to have McCarthy as Speaker. Now, I'm not going to put words in Matt's mouth. He's about to come on. We're going to play that clip, and then we're going to chat with him. Not only about the omnibus bill, which is very important to all of us, but also about this speakership role. Take a listen.
We might not get to a speaker on the first ballot. It may take a few votes. It may take a few days, may take a few weeks. But you know what? I'd rather get this right. I'd rather have sort of a turbulent takeoff than to spend 2 years trying to follow a leader that's got a wet finger in the wind to try to figure out where to go with things.
So what you're saying is that by the end, the wee hours of 1-3, we may not have a speaker. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying we could see the cherry blossoms bloom and not have a speaker.
Wow.
I hope it doesn't come to
Wow.
But,
well, but Matt, but is that good for the country? That means we wouldn't have subpoenas, no committees, no budgets.
Well, look, we don't have it anyway if it's Kevin McCarthy. I've been to this movie. I've seen the way the guy acts in leadership, and there's no gusto there. There's no strength. There's only slower surrender than yesterday.
Joining us now to discuss the future of the speakership under the GOP and help break down this ridiculous omnibus bill where there is all kinds of radical spending is our pal, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. Matt, welcome back to the program. Where do you want to start? Speakership or omnibus? You know which one I'm fired up the most about is my damn money. Because I started looking at some of this 40. How many pages was this, by the way? 4,100 pages?
Over 4,000 pages. And we have very few hours to review that legislation, but also to see the operative effects of these bills. I do know there's a ton of woke priorities globally, even global abortions being funded in this legislation, global LGBTQ and gender affirming kind of wokeness, as they call it. But I'm certain we would disagree with that and certainly don't want our money going to it. But at least let me clear the air on this. I am a Republican, and my number one priority isn't Ukraine. So Mitch McConnell does not speak for me. My number one priority is the contracting American economy. Another huge priority is the invasion at our border. And we haven't even gotten into the weaponization of this government against our people. And these Twitter files are so explosive. We cannot trust the swamp of Washington, D.C. to address these issues if they're obsessed about borders being violated oceans away. Mitch McConnell is definitely in a different place than Republican voters, even if Senate Republicans are willing to go along with him on this terrible legislation. And it's not just that we're funding all this effort on Ukraine's border. We're also putting over $12 billion into the sustainment of the Ukrainian economy. So we're doing economic development in Ukraine. Meanwhile, other parts of this bill literally tie the hands of our own border patrol. President Trump funded a really aggressive technological system to have cameras and different motion sensors on the border. And this legislation says that we're not allowed to update, enhance, or plug in any of it. And so what you've already bought and paid for to secure your country, they're literally sabotaging in the omnibus. Any Republican who votes for this bill has committed just a grave act of betrayal against their voters, their constituents in the country.
Matt, they need 10. I would assume Uncle Mitchie has his usual suspects of Collins, Murkowski, Romney, and a handful. So 5 or 6. Is he going to get to the 10? Because I saw a lot of senators today, I don't know if we have video, holding a press conference talking smack on him in the omnibus bill. So I would hope he's not going to get the 10 needed.
I would hope too, but the big concern, retiring Republican senators who want to become lobbyists. Because if your goal is to line up your golden parachute on K Street, then this is a great bill to vote for, because almost every corrupt interest has their snout down in the trough. So the coalition of Republicans who just want to get pork for their own priorities, Republicans that are trying to set up their next job on K Street, and the Republicans that are just totally the controlled opposition, the worry is the assembly of those coalitions could actually get the Democrats to rule the country's budget with a dead hand for a year, even though Republicans should be in control in the House. And I do think if we surrender this moment of leverage, which we should not, it only increases the importance of having a Speaker of the House who fights. And that is my critique of Kevin McCarthy. I've seen this guy in leadership for years, and only recently, when he realized he didn't have the votes, have you seen this spasm of activity around Mayorkas or whatever else. Remember, this is the guy who was called Big Tech's best friend. This is the guy who gets his policy notes from the likes of Frank Luntz. His own mentor from California said that Kevin McCarthy is a liar and that the lies always change. So right now, Kevin is feeling pressure from the right. So he's trying to parade around like he's some sort of conservative. But the reality is he doesn't only respond to pressure from the right. He has a long history of voting for these types of omnibus bills, voting for far too many accommodations for illegal aliens. And he is backed by a lot of the entities that we have to fight against. The very people who are working for Pfizer are some of his closest confidants. The very people who work for Google, his close confidants. And if we're actually going to buckle down and get stuff done, we need someone who's going to actually deliver on their commitments. That has not been the history of Kevin McCarthy.
I got you. And Matt, I don't disagree with you. You've heard me. And I told him yesterday, I told him on the phone when I talked to him to book him for the show for the first time in the 2.5 years he's been on the air. And I've known Kevin since 18, that I'd play nice on his first one, but he knows I've busted his chops on this show many, many times over his decisions. I want to play a quick clip of a part of the interview yesterday and get your response to this, and we'll wrap stuff up. Go ahead, guys.
The real challenge here is you have to get 218 votes on the floor. So 5 people can determine to say, no, you can't go forward. But if you don't select the speaker, nothing else happens. So we can't start having the hearings down on the border. We can't send out any subpoenas. We can't start investigating the FBI. We can't become energy independent. Everything stops and the American public wonders what's going on. This isn't something we should be fighting over. This is something we should be uniting. I've just won seats. I won the primary inside the conference by 85% of the vote. Let's get to work. The American public expect us to.
Matt, sounds like what Charlie Kirk and Jack Posobiec said to you over at AmFest. So this could back us up. You're claiming 3 months till March, and people want to see action on all those things, the laptop, the COVID cover-up, and especially the border. If we wait 3 more months, you're talking about millions more, especially if 42 goes away this week, coming into this country, and more drugs. Can we afford to risk that for 3 months? Easy question.
Well, as I said in my interview with Charlie Kirk, it's certainly not my hope that things take that long, but that is in Kevin's hands. And what was amazing about that clip you just played is that when Kevin McCarthy talks about his wins, you could tell that his heart's not in it. Like, the insincerity literally pours through the lens in that clip. It was quite something to watch. Like, do you feel like Republicans have been winning for you in Washington, D.C.? Hell, we can't even stop this omnibus from coming together. And Kevin McCarthy is only sort of sprung into action on the omnibus recently, when we should have been laying the predicate all along to Mitch McConnell that we weren't going to tolerate it, and we should have been calling out any Republican senator and telling them that they will not be greeted with warm wishes in the House of Representatives if they go on to lobbying careers or whatever else in their future if they're retiring. But we didn't do that stuff. So look, I would rather have a little bit of turbulence in the beginning than to like go on this flight with a pilot who doesn't know where they're going to land. Okay. And if it means that it takes a little extra time, that will be uncomfortable. We will be criticized by the mainstream media. And you know what? I'm here for it. And maybe it would be different if Donald Trump were in the White House, if we had control of the Senate, and this one feature of government was the one thing stopping, the Trump agenda from occurring, or any Republican for that matter. But are you really worried that if the House of Representatives doesn't meet for a few weeks or does not organize under a Speaker McCarthy, that's going to fundamentally change the way the country and the world operates? Of course, that's ridiculous. Kevin should see that he doesn't have the votes. He's been trying to get the votes for years and still doesn't have them. The real question is, Kevin, when are you going to realize you don't have the votes, and when are you going to step aside so that we don't encounter that challenge on January 3rd? So I would say that any sort of chaos would be caused by denial, not by our principled stand.
All right. Well, all I can say is a conservative, America first taxpayer and veteran, I'm getting tired of the infighting. I want everybody to get their damn act together January 3rd, and I want to see some action from my America First GOP folks. And if that means kicking Kevin out or taking Kevin but holding his feet to the fire, either way, we the people want to see some damn action, period. That's it. And we love you. Take care. Matt Gaetz, Firebrand, Florida Congressman. Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thanks, Dave.